If there was a critic predisposed to enjoy Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you're listening to him. I defended Emma Tammy's critically panned first adaptation, and I've also written about the overblown curse of video game adaptations here on IGN. So let all that appropriately color my disdain for Tammy's malfunctioning sequel bright red like an alarm.
Abby, help us. Come find us.
Five Nights at Freddy's 2 brings back the Henson Company's impressive animatronics for another creepy kids meal. But this time, they're bound to an atrocious story that underestimates how video games and movies are two hugely different mediums.
There's no way that'll work.
Five Nights at Freddy's creator Scott Cawthon claims sole screenwriting duties this time, and the drop-off is catastrophic. Cawthon shoves Mike Schmidt and little sister Abby into a reassembly of his 2014 point-and-click survival horror sequel, reopening Freddy Fazbear's original location.
Nobody's been here for decades. Some little girl got murdered here.
Here, where William Afton began his killing spree, Abby attempts to reunite with her lost friends, these Animalian animatronics possessed by the souls of murdered children. What she finds is far more sinister, and unleashes a new evil from Freddy's derelict restaurant shadows, the marionettes. Afton's daughter, Vanessa Shelley, tried to subdue and hide the possessed puppet. But now, inhabited by the soul of Afton's bravest victim, it's vengeful and on the prowl. Before things get heated, let me confirm that the animatronics are innocent here. Jim Henson's Creature Shop doubles its presence with the inclusion of toy versions of Freddy's gang.
I will show you the way.
These sleeker, more metallic versions stand just as impressive as the fuzzier, let's say Chuck E. Cheese-like iterations we've already beheld, and they remain a masterwork of practical effects dominance. Foxy's Mangle form, this failed pull-apart activity experiment, gives a freakish junkyard appearance, while the marionette dangles and flails with a noodle-like uncanniness that juxtaposes Freddy's robotic motions. Tammy understands how to bring these not-so-gentle giants to life, and does so with larger-than-life appeal.
My father was a monster. You know that.
But that's where my praise stops. Wait, sorry. I'm here for the animatronics and the Newton Brothers Party Time score that's inspired by 8-bit soundtracks and cheesy kiddie restaurant tunes. There, that's two whole things I applaud.
So you wanna tell me about your bad dreams?
Now, it's time for the not-so-fun stuff.
Half of this town will be dead by morning.
Fazbear fanatics will know precisely what to expect from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because Cawthon cares more about parading the hits than reworking his security guy in a room playability. Tammy's saddled with a screenplay that's cramming nutritionless Easter eggs down our throat like we're held hostage in a Cadbury egg production facility.
Everyone called it an accident, but it wasn't until years later when those 5 children went missing.
Is it humorous when Josh Hutcherson's Mike Schmidt mocks a discarded Freddy faceplate, dismissing its use as a disguise only for it to work later? Sure, but the first film is far savvier about transforming the sedentary Five Nights at Freddy's playstyle into a feature-length adventure. That movie hardly panders. Evolution reimagines Five Nights at Freddy's for theaters. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a step backward in that regard, trying to one-for-one gameplay elements without realizing how silly the functionality appears on screen. In the sequel, Tammy and Cawthon strive to provide a more ferocious horror bite, but they rely on only one method: jump scares. Cawthon introduces the marionette as a sock puppety villain that possesses humans and turns them into these bright-eyed demons. But the film makes frustrating use of the otherwise eerie imagery. I've already written a Cinefix script about the art of the jump scare, specifically how it's an additive and not the main course. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 disagrees, and renders itself frightless in the process. Tammy leans into the most conventionally uninteresting tropes of PG-13 horror films when we're talking about terror, Anything interesting happens off screen, which includes beating jump scares like a dead horse until they're utterly redundant and predictable. Add in a terrible Instagram face filter for whenever Charlotte inhabits someone's body, looking like something that only haunts you in your DMs, and woof, does the film's attempt to be spookier land with a thud. It all feels so self-conscious and reactionary. Cawthon tries to beat complaints to the punch, which is a recipe for disaster in filmmaking. Don't get me wrong, Five Nights at Freddy's was viciously savaged by critics, but to backpedal almost feels like cowardice at this point. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 makes all the glaring video game adaptation mistakes that we have seen before, which stings even worse because its predecessor doesn't. The game franchise is a convoluted mess of continuity, which is already seeping into Blumhouse's films. Such narrative ridiculousness is more forgivable in video games, where interactivity is going to trump storytelling, but movies are a different beast. Without his co-writers, Cawthon defaults to a video game mindset that doesn't work the same in Hollywood.
It's always the same.
Worst of all, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 suffers from a horrendous third act problem, in that it doesn't really have one. Cawthon treats the sequel as feature-length promotional material for whatever comes next. The Marionette deserves so much better than this film, which does a whole lot of setting up without wanting to see anything through. Don't worry, that'll all get addressed in the sequel, Blumhouse promises as they count fat stacks of ticket sales. Cawthon pelts us with lore and rubs salt in the wounds, dumping reveal after reveal before a blink and you'll miss it conclusion that displays no fundamental understanding of filmic structure. The movie wants you so desperately to gasp at its cliffhanger ending, but all it does is make us want to cut the cord from this On the Fritz series. The cast is fighting tooth and nail to wrestle any modicum of intrigue from their roles, but there are Hallmark specials that read as more genuine than this movie. Elizabeth Lale's tortured daughter tries to bury us in Vanessa's trauma, but then pulls a gun on her spin class buddy mid-breakdown and we're not supposed to laugh? Hutcherson wanders aimlessly through the sequel, filling the void wherever he's needed. Then there's Piper Rubio, the victim of adult bullying by her science teacher because there's an important robotics competition the same day as a town-wide Freddy Fazbear festival. I can't make this stuff up, and it's all so hackily cobbled together. Skeet Ulrich, McKenna Grace, Wayne Knight, and Theodis Crane all deserve better in supporting roles that range from rage bait to nameless sidekicks. Frankly, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a bare minimum sequel. Everything it's doing lacks enthusiasm. As a horror movie, it lazily pushes characters straight towards danger, stupidly keeps them there, and ruins excitement by tipping every scare. As a video game adaptation, it trots out familiar mechanics and callbacks, but treats these thrown bones as a main attraction. It's an incomplete sequel, an underwritten coming-of-adolescence story, and as a PG-13 gateway horror film, it'd be laughed out of the cafeteria by the likes of Insidious or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Game over, pull the plug, reboot the system. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 gives sequels, video game adaptations, and gateway horror movies a bad name. Cawthon adheres too rigidly to the franchise's muddy mythology, coyly withholding some information and dumping exposition elsewhere, both at bafflingly wrong times. Tammy is a gun for hire here, bringing no secret sauce to the pizza party. The saving grace of outstanding animatronics is worth embarrassingly little when generic as sin is the nicest compliment anything deserves. No film is meant to please everyone, but even considering the die-hard fan base Cawthon has cultivated, it's hard to tell who Five Nights at Freddy's 2 will impress with a film so bad that it'd be a franchise killer anywhere else.
Hey guys, thanks for watching our review of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I'm Clint Gage, and joining me once again, one of our favoriteest horror movie pals, Matt Donato. Matt, how you doing, bud?
I'm tired.
Yeah?
I'm tired.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that right up front because that's honestly mostly what I want to talk about. Because your review is great, is really good to read. But I do want to get a little more inside baseball here with this one because there's an interesting thing that happens with some movies, and I think this one in particular is a shockingly good opportunity to talk about it. It's movies that sort of don't want critics, which I actually think can be a good thing. But we can get into that in a second. I'm going to give you a chance to rant about it a bit first. Particularly, the thing with this one is that the embargo right? They showed the movie to critics the Wednesday night before it opens, and they lifted the embargo, I think, while the credits were still rolling. I mean, literally, it was, what, 45 minutes after the movie let out? An hour, maybe? Something like that?
As a critic, you have to deal with embargoes. That is part of my job. That is the whole purpose of it. And, like, embargoes exist for many reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is the studio just wants to control the output of reception. Example is, like, Disney with the early Marvel stuff. There were, like, multiple rollouts. So, like, I was not at a level where I could see the first rollout at the time, so my review got to be in the second roll. Like,
right.
So much goes into it.
Yeah.
And in the case of Five Nights at Freddy's, this is very much a movie that's going to make all of the money without a review put out at all. Like
Sure.
Our reviews don't even really matter for this movie because, let's be honest, I just thrashed it. I just gave it the most negative possible.
3, yeah.
And I defended the first. I wrote my review for another website, but I'm one of the few positive on the first one. So, like, I was supposed to like this movie.
Yep.
But getting back to the embargo of it all, it's like studios do this often, and I've been writing for over a decade at this point, and I can remember through my entire career, these bigger theatrical films, you are going to have to see it the night before and pump the review out for usually the next morning. Maybe you have till 11 a.m. or something like that, but an embargo at 10 p.m. at night is not something that is going to draw attention. So when a movie sees that specifically, it's like, oh, they really don't care about any critical reception, and it's not that they're even trying to hide it. It's just not necessary for them.
They don't need it, because the fan base is there and they're excited. Full stop. That's all that matters.
I mean, it's tracking for 70 million to open, and that's we are bygone in this whole thing. And the only thing that matters to us though, like, it's on the critics side, and I'm sitting here going, cool, so I have an assignment I have to do. My review has to get to you guys as quickly as possible. It is now 10 p.m. at night, and I'm getting home because Los Angeles traffic.
Sure.
And haven't eaten dinner, haven't done anything, so you gotta bang your review out, try to get some sustenance so you don't fall asleep, and have it be well written enough, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
you
want
to be thoughtful for over 1,000 words about Five Nights at Freddy's too. That's a big enough challenge in general. But it's funny because in the old days, and I've got more gray on my chin than you do, so I can say in the old days, it used to be a sign that the movie wasn't good, that the studio wasn't confident in it, to where if there was this kind of embargo turnaround, it would be like, no, this movie's going to be bad. Like, that's the assumption. And then Marvel comes along, like you say, and they start doing it more out of a concern for spoilers than anything else for those tight turnarounds. But then at some point, over the past couple of years, F1 is doing, I go see my movies and then I drive to an IHOP down the street from the theater and I write my review there because the reviews, the turnarounds are so tight. And so it's just become standard procedure for everybody to do it. But Five Nights at Freddy's, I think, is it seems to be a different case. And I mean, did it seem that way in the text of the movie itself? Like there's some awareness of what we're doing here with this sequel?
I think there's I don't want to say lack of awareness, because my main problem with the movie is how disjointed it feels, and it feels like it is a midpoint between two other chapters. And I very much do think they kind of said, well, everyone's going to be here anyway. Everyone's going to, come out for this movie. And the fans are going to know what's going on. Because to me, I think this did a way worse job of indoctrinating new fans into it. It's a sequel, don't get me wrong, so you have to have some knowledge. But the way that it handled existing lore and introducing characters and playing coy, while at the same time hitting you over the head with some of this other stuff, it just kind of dumped a bunch of exposition on you and ended on one of the worst cliffhangers I've ever seen. And it's just kind of like, where'd the third act go? I'm grasping at the third act as it's flying away, and then the movie just ended, and I'm like, oh, you're really going to tell us you got to show up to the next movie for most of the stuff you wanted to see in this one.
And it's tracking for $70 million, and they'll make a third one for 15, and that'll make another 70 million, and everything will be fine. The world will keep
Blumhouse
spinning.
is breaking the bank on these
This
with
is
30 million.
And as like I said at the start, it's not necessarily a bad thing for them to do it this way, because it is what it is. Being savvy enough to know who you are, where your audience is at, and very strategically aiming for that's great.
Well, it's also the other conversation of embargoes are for the studio at this point. I don't think they are a kiss of death anymore as much, because it's a studio being nervous too. It's not only oh, we have something bad. I've seen plenty of great movies that have the studio didn't know what to do with, so they hold the embargo, and then I'm like, yo, this movie's rad. I don't know why they held it. Go see it. Or, something of that nature. So the only thing I really pay attention to now as a horror critic is if there's no embargo. If you're sending me to the Thursday night opening screening at 7 p.m. and saying, oh yeah, just
Go
go
nuts,
watch
guys.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, no, that's the one time where like now I'm nervous. Now I'm worried.
Yeah. No, it gets weird. It's such a weird bit of politicking with how they set the embargoes. It's a fascinating thing. And like I say, very inside baseball. That's our problem, not the fans' problem. Like
No one else has to worry about that stuff. The only thing we have to worry about is just not sleeping.
Is not sleeping, right?
A healthy schedule or anything.
All right. Well, thank you. That's going to do it for us. Thank you again for reviewing Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Giving it a 3. It's the first 3 I've seen in a minute.
Yeah, I felt bad.
It's hard sometimes, right?
It's hard doing that. Like, again, as a critic, I want to say we don't go into movies wanting to hate.
That's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, it's the last thing. It's the last thing we want.
But that will do it for us. We'll see you on the next one of these. And thank you guys for watching. And for more movie reviews, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.